Good morning. My name is Mr. White, and today at Half Truth Media, we bring you Mr. Blue. Hi, Mr. Blue. How are you doing? I'm great. Nice to be here. As you know, our two sides we don't talk too much, so that's why I've come up with this new book. Ah, yes, the new book. It's called Through the Prism. You can buy it for $4.99 at your local paint store. So, Mr. Blue, what is this book about? Well, to you people, the blacks and the whites, our world is completely different. We have, infinite number of colors maybe. And I just wanted you guys to know how our society functions. So, do you know who the royals are? Yeah, of course. Of course I know who the royals are. It's red, blue, yourself, and yellow. That's true. Those are who the royals are. Though my name is Blue, I'm actually from a different family. We call ourselves the originals. We are cyan, magenta, and yellow. We have certain privileges as being of the royal bloodline, despite we're from the actual royal bloodline, and these people they're more generic, reds and blues. So I am cyan, and there's magenta, and of course yellow, as you know, is the king of all the colors, the primaries. And yellow, knowing that we are the true bloodline, and that we don't want any part of the fame that comes with this, they made special arrangements for us, for our education. Nowadays, most magentas, they go into healthcare. They become therapists, teachers. While the cyan, they usually take the opposite route. They're monks and comics and poets and authors such as myself. Ah, okay. Tell me more about the hierarchy of your society. So, yellow is the primary, royal, and for the past, not in the past, until quite recently, there had been a long war between red and blue for dominance. The 100-year war ravaged both nations. People were hungry, people were dying, and eventually they revolted against their monarchs. Luckily, the two kings quickly made peace. In the peace treaty of Lavender, it is said that the royals will interbreed, and there will be two purples created by the interbreeding, and those two purples are going to be with two families, one family each, in order to preserve or maintain peace amongst the worlds. Quite interesting. I never thought that you guys would have wars. As whites and blacks, we have a lot of wars. The blacks are more or less content with the different shades, but whites have a lot of pride, So, I, for example, am an eggshell, and a friend of mine is a mother's pearl. Another friend of ours is a cream. And there is a certain kind of superiority complex that mother of pearl feels, that it's brighter, more purer, it reflects light better. So I don't think I mean, on second thought, I think it is quite natural that you guys will also have your own wars. Though I thought because of the multicultural setting of your world, of your society, that people will be more understanding of each other. Well, our society has come to that point where people have become more understanding of each other. And in the past 50 years, the conventions have been broken completely. Now there are factions that different bloodlines can join. For example, the pastels. So there are different bloodlines into one kind of aesthetic. There are also those who are more or less purists, and they believe that they only want to be categorized as a secondary color, if not primary color. That's quite a complex society you have there. I heard that you recently got engaged. Tell us a little bit about that. Oh yeah, I agree. So, the thing I forgot to mention is that greys are, as you already know, untouchables. Well, yeah, untouchables in your society. But in our society, they are usually court advisors because they have said to have wisdom from both sides. And in fact, there was one time I met a white, and she was beautiful, and the way she made me feel, it was like I was flying, there were like butterflies inside of me. And her eyes were like fiery, I loved the passion that woman had. But at the same time, she needed a lot of validation. She needed me to always be around her. And she wanted to control certain aspects of her life and my life as well, which is what eventually led us to our separation. I'm sorry to hear that. No, it's okay. Then I met Grey. Man, when I look into her eyes, it's hypnotizing, Like there are stripes and there are circular spiral patterns. It just seems so profound to me. I'm glad to hear that. Love is a beautiful thing. It's one of the pillars of society. Speaking of pillars of society, can you tell us a little bit about the seven? The seven, yeah. The rainbow. Those guys are like one is chosen from each bloodline to be representatives and upholders of peace. They are called the United Colors, and they try to broker peace and help society when one part of society is facing some kind of problem. My favorite of them, and each one of these people, they have a society underneath them who is being bred to take that mantle when the current member dies. So my favorite is the Violet faction. They have this body paint that's glow in the dark, and then they have these trees which have bioluminescence, and it's a mix between green and blue, and they play music and they dance around a fire, and I just find their culture really interesting. Well, from my point, that seems utterly bizarre. Nobody from whites, at least, would be catch dead doing that, though that does seem somewhat similar to what a black might do. A white would rather spend his time or her time reading a book, or meeting somebody at high tea, playing crochet. Ah, yes, you guys are quite sophisticated, right? Yeah, absolutely. I recently heard a recording of I think Blue and Yellow from the Seven, and I was quite intrigued by Blue. He said something about being an ambiguous color where he can be thought of as melancholic and serene in the same breath. Yes, I completely agree. That's kind of the beauty of being blue. And I'm not exactly blue, I'm more cyan. But the beauty of being blue is it's kind of a sort of a mythical, mysterious kind of a color, Whereas people from my faction, Cyan, most of them become monks and they worship the lakes, the pools, and the sun. In some of their scriptures, they say that all color comes from the sun, and even though it's yellow, it contains all colors within it. And some of this idea is also shared by rest of society, justifying the position of yellow as the superior monarch. But I'm not so well aware about the physics of our world. I am more of a collector of stories, This book, From Beyond the Prism, it's an anthology. Ah, well, I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to read it, but I definitely look forward to reading it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. This has been another podcast. This has been another Dada podcast. This has been another Dada podcast.